Hello and welcome back to another episode. Another episode. Another episode of Fabulous Duo short stories.
Yes, welcome everybody. We have some new exciting stories for you guys. Again, you can listen to us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Listen Notes, Samsung Podcasts, even on YouTube, as well as our Podbean app here, our native site.
All of that in a bag of chips.
Exactly. To be fair, listening to these stories while eating is always good.
With a bag of chips, yeah. These stories go best with a bag of chips, a bag of Cheetos,
and a beer.
Dinner, and a beer.
Exactly.
Yes.
Last week we had some really fun and exciting stories. Michelle wrote a whole poem, so all of you guys should go back and listen to that. It was a poem about a crow tamer that was working towards world domination, but some interesting things happen in there. Not going to give away anything on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last week, Kristen's was about someone who sprouted an eye. Another one.
And another one.
Hey!
Yeah, it was really fun time. Both stories, as usual, have their fun little twists. Because what's a story without a little, twisty?
Yes. And we are called Fabulous Duo short stories, but I did write a poem, and I'm not gonna say sorry.
Well, to be fair, poems are stories as well.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, my story this week isn't a poem, but it is short. It's more like a disclaimer. The entire story is one big disclaimer. It's like a terms of service, kind of. You'll understand when Michelle reads that to you shortly.
Mine's actually pretty long, by the way.
It is.
Yes. Okay, so let's get into it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, Kristen's story is called Filthy Rich, and the prompt was, where do the one side of your socks go after the dryer? We've all been there, doing laundry, getting things transferred from the dryer to a basket, then adding another load to the dryer from the washing machine. However, when you dump out all that clothing and start preparing to fold it and pack it away, you're always missing a sock or two. Ever since the invention of the washer and dryer came about, this has been happening to thousands upon thousands of people. Many people have their take on what happens here. Some say there's an alternate dimension that only opens for milliseconds when the dryer spins on a specific rotation. But that's enough for a creature from the other side to snatch a small item quickly. Another popular theory is that there are little gnomes that sneak into your laundry to cause mischief by making you stress over only having one side of your sock pair. Lastly, the biggest myth of all that most people believe is during the wash, socks creep into the laundry drum. The heat and the rotation separate the clothes and cause them to disappear into the wastewater hose. All of these reasons are myths, and I would know. I've been in the laundry machine business for a long time now. The company I work for has been making washing machines since they were invented back in 1937. All of the companies that have their hands dabbling in making these products all had to be sworn into a special contract. You may have heard of people saying they sold their soul to the devil, and this generally brings about fame and fortune. What you may not be familiar with is that people sell their souls to all kinds of demons in exchange for something similar, especially big business owners. They didn't just suddenly have an amazing idea and grab the people to make their vision come to fruition. It was a deal with a demon. The demon sets everything up and they just profit. The laundry industry is surprisingly run by deals with the demon Beelzebub, one of the 7 princes of hell. Beelzebub has always been associated with filth and flies, so why would this demon want anything to do with the cleanliness of human clothing? The contract states that every washing machine and dryer would have a stamp with the seal of Beelzebub in it. What this does is activates a special ritual that swirls all the filth into one piece of clothing and then gets sent through to his realm. Because socks are easy to misplace and bought in bulk, People kept thinking that it was just weird. Maybe they dropped it somewhere, or maybe something else happened. Imagine all of the dirt and muck from the clothing pooling together and just pouring down all over Beelzebub's throne. Most of the employees at these companies have no idea what is really happening, as they just make the products and ship them out. It's the bigwigs on the top that are privy to this information, and are all branded by Beelzebub himself. All of this fortune while living in exchange for a measly little soul. Most of these people did not even believe in souls, so it seemed like a win-win situation. This creepy, dirty guy gets some socks, plus the idea of an unseen force that lives inside of you now belongs to him, and they get billions of dollars to live lavishly. It wasn't until it was too late that the people found out just how real the contract was between themselves and Beelzebub. No one knows how he handles the souls that he's been collecting, but there were rumors from others who hired shamans to contact their business associates, stating that they were damned to an eternity trudging through the same filth that they accumulated all of the years of their lives. Again, these were the words of shamans who could have been fraudsters and just heard the name Beelzebub and made something up to cash in from these mega-rich laundry tycoons. There had been incidents of people who had tried to either remove the seal if they ever found it, as well as manufacturers thinking they could simply also just not use the seals without any consequences. Unfortunately, a lot of these people ended up going missing, and all of their disappearances were covered up. The laundry industry is a lot bigger and more intense than one might think, but all industries have their secrets as well as their own special contracts with beings of otherworldly abilities. So now you know the truth behind what happens to your socks when you check your laundry and can't seem to find the missing side. For your sake, just move on and buy a new pair. It is not worth investigating, unless you too want to end up in a cold case covered up by another large corporation.
The end. Yay.
I like that. That was really cool. I like that the idea of large corporations being basically run by demons or people who sold their soul to demons is how we're going. How we're doing this.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. The legions of demons of hell are just like, we need to fund laundry machines and McDonald's. I don't know if I can leave that in.
I don't know if you can. Laundry machines and McDonald's.
And McDonald's.
Yeah, so like my take on the story was basically like, you know, everyone always has, like we've seen in cartoons, TV shows, everything, you know, it's like, oh, where'd my other sock go? They go into their laundry machine and it's just like, you know, they fall into like Narnia or something. And then you have the other ones where little like fairies or gnomes are stealing your things, going through your laundry and all that stuff. I'm like, you know what? What is a different take that people have not already tried? I didn't want to take something that already existed and make it better or make it worse or make it my own. I wanted to just go in a completely different direction that people hadn't already tried.
Yes.
Right? And I feel like I did that.
Yes, I think you did. I think you did it really well.
So, and you know, everyone knows that like Beelzebub is basically like the Lord of the Flies. So, the way that I thought, you know, that wastewater hose thingy, that is actually a reason why some people's clothing do go missing. I thought it'd be fun to put in the real reason as a myth.
Yeah, so. That's why I read that part. Like, I'm pretty sure that's real.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, let's put the real reason and make it a myth because Beelzebub is definitely realer. The realist. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was just gonna be like a fun way to do it.
Yeah, I liked it. That was cute. I like we start off with, so you know, our socks go missing. But you know what it is? It's demons.
Demons.
I love it.
It's always demons.
It's only demons. It's good.
What else wants your socks? Come on.
Demons. Only demons.
Right?
Yes.
Jeez. But no, like, I had a fun time reading it, reading it and writing it. So one thing that I've been telling people with these stuff is, like, when I'm writing my stories, let's just say I stop to go eat dinner or something like that, and I'm watching a TV show, I always want to stop watching the TV show and go back to writing. Because, like, I think while I'm watching the TV show, I'm thinking about my story, and then my mind is, like, in that world. So that whole fantasy thing is going on, and I'm just more invested in the story that I've built in my mind than the story I'm seeing on screen.
Yeah, no, I get that too. But it's like, for me, it's like, if I think about it during the day or whatever, I have to immediately write it down or I'm gonna forget it. That's just me.
Yeah, no, I understand that feeling. And, like, the thing is, I do sometimes forget what I wanted to write, but then it evolves into something else, which I think ends up working out better.
Yeah.
So it's like, I might be, like, in the shower, I have an idea, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write that down, get out of the shower. What was my idea? But here's a better one.
Yeah, like, yeah. For me, it's like I get my idea and I'm just like, I like this one, and I forget it. I'm like, well, now I don't want to do nothing.
And that's how 2 different workflows are.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
now we get to move on to Michelle's story. So Michelle's story is based on the prompt I gave her last week, where a person has the ability to give any level of misfortune to anyone, but that same person later receives an equal amount of good fortune. This story is called Deicide. One more time. What? Explain it to me one more time, Damien requested. If I have to explain it to you one more time, I'm going to wipe your memory and go find someone else. The unknown goddess massaged her temples with her fingers, clearly agitated. What? If I'm so easily replaceable, then why'd you pick me in the first place? Damien protested. You're right. I clearly made a mistake, she said, raising a glowing hand to his forehead. Wait! I just need a second to fully understand what you told me, he said, blocking her hand from touching him. So you're giving me the ability to give people misfortune? He asked, repeating what the goddess had told him before. She crossed her arms over her chest and simply nodded. But they then receive good fortune equal to the misfortune that I inflicted. Closing her eyes and rubbing her temple with one hand, she nodded again. But why? Damien asked. That's not for you to know, she answered without even looking at him. But if I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this ability, then why would I use it? He pressed her, hoping she would tell him something useful. Enough. One should never question the gods. Her already glowing and floating figure started to get brighter as she reached for his head a second time. I'll do it, he blurted out, backing up on his bed, covering his head with a pillow. Her hand stopped. Do what? She asked with suspicion in her eyes. I'll use the ability, he said frantically. Something of a glowing white portal appeared in the ceiling of Damien's bedroom, and out dropped something that he could only describe as a crystal ball. It plopped on his bed in front of him. The unknown god waved her hand over it, and it began to glow and hover off the bed at eye level with him. This can show you any person, anywhere, in the world at any time. With it, you can find people to test your ability on. Go on, try it, she explained. He studied it for a second, not knowing how to make it do his bidding. Okay. Show me the street outside my house, he requested the orb. It began to glow brighter until he could make out images in its center. In the middle of the ball was a small but clear image of the street in front of his house, as if someone was live streaming directly to the crystal ball. While he was staring at it in amazement, an old man started walking through. "There, try it out on him," the god ordered. "But I don't even know him," Damien responded, raising an eyebrow looking at the man in the image. "Do it," she said, crossing her arms with a cold glare in her eyes. Hesitantly, he rose his hands to his face and looked at them. "How?" he asked, looking up at her through his lashes. "The same way you use the ball. Just say what you want to happen to him out loud. Hurry up, he's leaving." He truly didn't want anything bad to happen to the old man, so he said something as non-invasive as possible. "He's going to step on gum," he said. He could feel the god's disapproval behind him. Just then, the old man could be heard through the crystal ball. "Oh, kids these days don't know what a garbage can is, huh?" He noticed something else as he was looking down at his shoe. "Well, if it isn't my lucky day." The old man smiled and bent down to pick up a $5 bill that had been laying on the floor. "I'm gonna go buy me a pack of gum with this," he declared out loud to himself and happily walked down the street. "Wow," Damien started. "Who decided that $5 is the equivalent of stepping in gum?" he asked absent-mindedly, eyes glued on the crystal ball. He shifted his gaze to the god, who was floating on the other side of the ball. "Is it you?" he asked. Her expression got darker. "Do not question the gods," was her only response. "How about this? If I use the ability in a way you wouldn't expect and surprise you, you have to answer one of my questions." He locked eyes with her, determined to get answers out of this so-called god. Part of him didn't expect her to take up the challenge, but she slowly nodded. "Show me my coworker," he said to the ball. The image shifted to an office, and in the middle of the image was a woman sitting in front of a computer working away. "This is my friend from work. She's always talking about how she wants to quit this job, but she never does. So now," he raised his hand up to the crystal ball, "I'm going to get her fired." The god let out an exasperated sigh. Even if getting fired is objectively unfortunate, if that's what she wants, then for her it is fortunate, therefore you will not be able to cause it with misfortune, she explained. Just then, his coworker was called into the boss's office and promptly fired. The god looked at the crystal ball with confusion clouding her features. Then she cleared her throat and asked, "How did you do that?" There was a reason she never quit her job. She had a family to support. The misfortune here is having to find a new way to support her family. Have you ever heard someone describe something as a blessing in disguise? He asked her. She didn't respond, so he continued. I know her very well. Without this job, she will flourish. Damien locked eyes with the god as she waved her hand over the crystal ball, changing the image of his crying coworker to that same coworker being interviewed by a news reporter in seemingly a different time. So, how did you come up with this amazing idea for your fast-growing business? The reporter asked her. Well, it started when I was fired from the job. Damien turned to the god, satisfied with the future he saw for his friend. Well, he asked the god, will you answer my question now? If he didn't know any better, He would have sworn he saw her eyes roll when she nodded her head, agreeing to give him an answer. But you only get one question. She held up one finger. Fine, but you have to answer it to the best of your abilities, he retorted. This time, she definitely rolled her eyes and nodded again in agreement. Why are you making me do this? He asked. The gods have been obsessed with fortune because it's something that we cannot control, she started. Fortune seems to exist naturally. However, misfortune is unnatural. Some people and things are more fortunate than others, but nothing is inherently misfortunate. Damien was confused, but didn't show it on his face, certain that she would deem him too stupid and stop explaining. We've been experimenting with fortune since we first discovered it. In fact, it's almost as if it's a human creation that stems from individual perception. For example, misfortune becomes a blessing in disguise after someone's perception has changed. As for equal parts fortune and misfortune, it's almost as if a person's fortune is in a natural state, but if you insert misfortune to disrupt their state, something fortunate must happen to the person in order to balance out the natural state of being. She paused for a second to look at Damien. The purpose of you is to get a human's perspective to see if there are other ways to apply misfortune that we've overlooked. She waved her hand over the hovering crystal ball again. Recently, our primary objective has changed to trying to understand the individual values of fortune and misfortune so that we can learn how to measure it. Our secondary objective is to see just how much misfortune someone can take. Damien felt a shiver down his spine. What did that mean? If you inject too much misfortune, the subject will die. And then what happens to the fortune that was supposed to displace the misfortune? If the subject is dead, then they can experience neither fortune or misfortune. So where does it go? At this point, she just seemed to be thinking out loud. If we figure out a way to measure it, then we might be able to harness the leftovers from people who die from an overdose of misfortune. The crystal ball began to show an image. A construction site slowly faded into view. Fortune is very valuable to the gods since we cannot possess it or control it. My personal working theory is that fortune is a concept created by humans. But how do you measure a concept? Damien could hear the sounds of the construction site coming from the crystal ball, and for some reason, they were making him nervous. Take this man walking by the construction site, she said. It would be unfortunate if the steel beam being raised here just... She tapped the crystal ball, fell, and before Damien knew what was happening, the sound of creaking metal and snapping cables ran out from the ball. He watched as the giant steel beam plunged to the ground where the man was standing, and screams erupted from the ball, filling the room with the panic of the city and painful shrieks of the man who was somehow still alive. But Damien couldn't tell for how much longer. Paralyzed, Damien stared in dismay at what was happening in the ball when the god waved her hand over the ball and the image changed to a courtroom where the man was sitting in a wheelchair, missing both his legs and arm, and it looked like he lost a chunk of his face too. There, see? I thought I had injected enough misfortune to kill him, but it seemed like instead he proved to be extremely fortunate. The judge in the court hearing could be heard rewarding the man $2 million after winning a lawsuit against the construction company. Oh, and he even became a millionaire. I thought he was fortunate to have survived. Maybe fortune, a human concept, can be measured in money, a human invention. she muttered to herself with her hand on her chin. Damien found his voice, and when he spoke, he was surprised at the rage in his own voice. You robbed him of the ability to walk, he snarled. The unknown god seemed to have forgotten that he was there and looked up at him with raised eyebrows. What? She asked. Where is the equality in fortune here? He responded. He's a millionaire now? She said with a confused look on her face. Damien pointed to the man still sitting in the courtroom. While his lawyers celebrated the money they'd won, he didn't move a muscle or make any expression on his face. He doesn't seem to think that this is fortunate. He snapped at her, glaring deep into her eyes. She examined the man and the ball closer, zooming in on him as if she was using a smartphone. You're right. How interesting. She started searching through the moments of the rest of his life, looking for some evidence of good fortune. As she searched, Damien could see that things started going from bad to worse for the man until they reached near the end of his life, where he was much older, sitting in a church. Maybe all of his fortune ran out from surviving the initial misfortune that was inserted, she began mumbling to herself again. The sound of a church organ was emanating softly from the orb, along with the sobbing prayers of the old man. Damien had to lean in closely to hear what he was saying. Please, God, I don't know why you punished me all those years ago, but please don't let anything bad happen to my family that I leave behind. They are all very good kids. Is he giving his leftover fortune to his family? The unknown god also leaned closer to the ball. If it's something that can be given, then it should be possible to take it as well, she said with her hand on her chin, eyes on the man. Damien could feel the sting of tears in his eyes. At what? He couldn't say. Sympathy for the man? Disgust at himself for not stopping the god? Or rage at the realization that the unnatural intervention of the gods were the sole reason for people's misfortune? He was convinced that it was his responsibility to make it right again. Instead of using the powers given to him, he would find that man and befriend him for the rest of their lives if he had to. But first, he put both his hands on the orb, startling the unknown god from her depraved thoughts. It would be unfortunate, he began locking eyes with the god, if there were no gods to answer his prayers. Oh.
What do you think?
I think that fortune doesn't favor fools.
Fortune doesn't favor fools.
But yeah, no, that was really, wow, look at the turn. I'm like, where's the Deicide? there it day.
There it is.
There it is. Oh boy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that was my. I was literally like, oh, what should I do with this? Kill gods.
Kill gods. I mean, clearly we have a theme. You kill gods, and I have demons running the world.
Yeah, I was gonna say something like that when I was reading your thing. I was like, oh, your about demons and my about killing gods, and our prompts were not related to that.
At all.
Not at all.
You know, mine's about demons. Your main character is Damien. God.
Yeah.
Might as well be Demonian. Yeah, no, that was really good. Because it was just like, if this was to like, if gods can't have fortune and misfortune, I was like, okay, how's he going to use the orb on them to do this? But then if he does it indirectly through humans, it should theoretically work because they can't control fortune and misfortune. Therefore, since it's a natural thing that happens. So yeah, like it was just very interesting the way that it went through. And, you know, since we're seeing that there was the time skips that the orb can show, I wonder if, like, does the future change if he befriends this man immediately after his injury? Like, if he visits him in the hospital and stuff? Because the court hearing and the winning of the money, you know, that kind of stuff. And then it becomes a whole loop because the man's going to have this friend. Will he still go and pray at the church? Will he now confide in the friend?
Yeah, so basically the idea is that he can change the future, more or less, right? But he's not focused on changing the future. All he wants to do is help that man basically live through his life now like this. Because the future that they looked at is basically what's going to happen from that point. And then, like, this comes with, like in real life, we have lots of theories about the future and how it works, and, like, you know, parallel universes. Every decision you make makes an entirely different parallel universe. So with this, it's like, from that point when they looked at his future, that's a universe where Damien doesn't go befriend the guy, right? So theoretically, befriending the guy will change the future. However, some things are still obviously going to happen. If he does decide to, for example, sue the company, he's going to win a ton of money because clearly, right? So it's like that. The only difference he's trying to kind of make is when Damien and the unknown god were looking through this man's life, they could see that he wasn't happy. Or, like, you know, he was always, you know, unhappy. And so Damien's now goal is to go befriend him and try to make him happy, or try to, you know what I mean? So that's the only difference that would happen, I guess, in that alternate reality.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So okay, that makes sense. It's just very interesting take on, like, how things go. It's very, like, you know, time travel and paradoxes and stuff like that. It's all very interesting, and especially since the orb can show you, you know, the god cycled through the man's entire life. You know, it's like they didn't just say, here's the future, here. They cycled looking through every moment of their life. So this orb, you know, you can do that. Like, you can just scan through and just check it all out.
Yeah. So this is the part that, like, I tried to, when I write these kinds of characters, I try to really go into, like, their mindset. And so with the god, she's just one of the gods, right? So all the gods are kind of researching this, or trying to figure it out, because they're just like, well, we don't know what it is, we don't know where it came from, we don't have control over it. And so it's like they're trying to figure out how to measure it, they're trying to figure out how to harness it, they're trying to figure out how to take it for themselves in a sort of way. So to be able to have the orb and use it to inflict misfortune on people, not just in the present, but in the past and in the future, they can basically, like, have more possibilities for experimentation. So if I was experimenting on Damien and I want to see how much misfortune he could take, I'll have to inflict the misfortune type of deal. Well, this is really f***ed up, but this is just how I figured it would go. I would have to inflict the misfortune, and then I see if I want to wait to see how long the delay time for his fortune to kick in, or if I want to just keep inflicting misfortune before he can experience fortune to see if he runs out, or if, you know what I mean, or if he dies and then now there's leftover fortune, supposedly, you know. And then there's also the theoretical theory within the story that fortune just dissipates with the death of a person. But
exactly.
The gods didn't come to that yet. They're still experimenting. So it's like, it's this.
It's crazy. It's a lot. But yeah. I want to see everybody's, like, thoughts on that. So if you want to go ahead and email us at fabulistduo.podbean.com. We have a contact us page. Also on our YouTube videos, you can leave comments there. We check those out. Yeah, like, I want to hear what you guys think about all this, and, you know. Yeah. Because, like, these kind of things, like, it just, time paradox can go on forever.
Yeah, time paradoxes. And I also wanted to bring up, like, in the story, I wanted to bring up, like, the whole thing of perception, like, what's good and what's bad, like, with his coworker there being like, all I want to do is quit, and to her that would be fortunate, but that's actually misfortunate, for her because she's gonna lose her job, and it's interesting. It's just like,
Exactly.
What kind of things are misfortunate? What kind of things are fortunate?
Yeah, and same thing like with the gum situation, like, oh no, stepped on gum, gets $5. I will step on all the gum if I get $5 every time.
Exactly.
But like, does that adjust how fortunate it is? Because like, if I step on a piece of gum and always get $5, then does that not like? It's strangely like super fortunate. So it'd be like when I start finding less money every time I stepped on gum, because it'd be fortunate I'm still finding money. I just don't have to find the same quantity.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So in this story example, it's like he finds $5 and it's just like that's a lot. Kind of, well, for some people it's kind of like that's a lot to find, or like you're getting paid to step on gum basically, and stepping on gum is not that big of a deal. But then if you think about like how much he's in, like in this particular situation, it's like this old man. Old people tend to value their things. So it's like, I've had these shoes for 60 years and now there's gum, you know what I mean? So it's like, it really depends on the person, I think, and the perception of individuals.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Damn. All right. Yeah. Well, okay. With that, let's find some fortune in next week's prompts.
No more. I thought we agreed no more.
The only segue Michelle would like is the one you can ride.
I wanna go home. Anyway, your prompt for next week is a detective goes undercover in a gang to find out that they're not doing anything illegal.
That's hilarious.
So
all right, gang. What are they doing? We are actually a jump rope gang. We compete against other gangs across the globe.
That's like they're
You mean a team?
You mean a team? A sports team? They're the Scooby-Doo gang.
Yeah.
They're just interviewing Freddy and Daphne. It's like, why are you called a gang? I don't know.
No, people just keep calling us that and kind of just stuck with us. So
they're just meddling kids, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Speaking of gang, just wanna real quick give you all a little piece of humor out here. I booked a reservation thingy for somewhere, and when they confirmed my reservation, it said for Kristen and a gang. And I'm like, okay.
And then you said, how'd you know that was my band name?
Yeah, right? But speaking of me having friends, Michelle's prompt is a person summons a demon accidentally, but they turn out to be very wholesome.
Friendship.
Yeah. So Michelle summoned me by mistake, and I turned her into bread.
I don't know if I can turn this into killing gods.
I don't. It's very wholesome. Well, with that,
yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and come next week for some more fun stuff. Because I definitely want to see how exciting it is going to be writing about this undercover gang thingy.
Gang, woo.
Exactly.
We have to leave before I keep making references that nobody's going to get.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. I have to learn to use my brain.
I'm a beatboxing blueberry. A construction site. Oh, well.
And are all branded by Beelzebub himself. That's horrifying.